Hey everybody, welcome. I'd like to thank all of you for attending. We're going to have a really interesting panel today. My name is Tom Cottingham. I'm the CEO of Flyover Media Group, and we spend a lot of time talking about and writing about talent attraction in Flyover Country in the Midwest. And we're always interested in the innovative things that cities are doing to attract talent. We believe that talent's fundamental to the success of all of our cities here in Flyover Country. So I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Rev1 Ventures. Rev1 in Columbus has had a huge impact on Columbus and Greater Ohio. They've invested $100 million in 100 companies and apparently have 50% success rate in companies surviving 5 years or more, which is astonishing. So we really appreciate Rev1's support and the work they're doing in Columbus. We've got a great panel today. We've got representatives from Tulsa, Milwaukee, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh. And without further ado, I'd like the panelists to take a couple minutes and introduce themselves, and we'll go from there. Justin, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Justin Harlan. I'm the managing director at Tulsa Remote. Tulsa Remote is a program obviously based in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Underneath the George Kaiser Family Foundation, we try to attract talented folks from all across the country that have remote jobs. We do that by incentivizing the move here with $10,000 cash, access to a co-working space in downtown Tulsa called 36 Degrees North, and then really what makes us different in comparison to all of the 50-ish programs like ours across the country is really a tight-knit community. We do events every single week where we're gathering together socially or professional development, volunteering, and really bringing people together, helping them integrate into the community in hopes of keeping them around long term. So far to date, we've brought over 1,500 remote workers to the city, and about 90% have stayed beyond their year commitment that they make when showing up. So been a really awesome venture so far, and excited to learn from other panelists. And again, thanks for having me.
Sure, and we're going to have questions later on, but I'm very curious about how you go about this assimilation. Next, we've got Kathy. Hey, Kathy.
Hi. I think you guys get the awards for coolest backgrounds. So.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm in Hawaii visiting my granddaughter. So that's why I've got this background.
Yeah, so I'm Kathy Henrich. I lead the MKE Tech Hub Coalition, which is a nonprofit in the region with over 120 organizational members focused on inclusively doubling tech talent here in the region, both to drive economic prosperity as well as create life-changing opportunities. And we center in a number of different priorities. One of them is to attract tech talent and businesses here to the region, but also to build that talent. We think it's an and conversation. And so also to build a diverse tech talent pipeline, to grow an innovation, or to grow and scale the innovation ecosystem, and last but not least, to build connections in community. So thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you for attending. I think next we've got Mark.
Hey,
man.
Welcome. So I'm Mark Anthony Thomas. I lead the Pittsburgh Regional Alliance, which is the business investment and talent attraction organization for the 10 counties that make up southwestern Pennsylvania. We work on a number of initiatives, obviously, that are catalyzing growth sectors that we want to see flourish to attract talent. We also have a number of talent-focused initiatives to attract remote workers, really brand Pittsburgh as a place that people should be living and considering to raise their families or to start their careers. And so happy to be on the panel and talk more about those initiatives.
Thanks very much. And Hardik?
Hi. Sorry, hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to be here. I'm Hardik Desai. I'm a senior partner at JumpStart Ventures. JumpStart Ventures is a venture capital investment organization. We invest in pre-seed, seed, and Series A companies throughout the state of Ohio. Very similar to Rev1, which we introduced kind of early on as a sponsor. Through our history, we have invested in 140 plus companies. We have roughly 140 million in capital or assets under management. JumpStart Ventures is a division of JumpStart Inc. JumpStart Inc. works with startups and small businesses throughout Northern Ohio, helping provide resources to scale their businesses, one-on-one mentorship, advisory services, workshops, and other means by which we help those companies get to potential. Excited to be here.
Oh, thanks. And we're excited to have you because obviously capital is critical to building the startup ecosystems here in Flyover Country. Justin, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the assimilation and the importance of that, and maybe some of even the tactics that you guys have employed that have been successful in integrating people into Tulsa.
Yeah, I mean, we, obviously start supporting them pretty early on. We use right when they get accepted into the program, we use a platform called Urban Bound, which helps folks kind of backwards plan a move to a new city. Has a lot of really great resources on there as it relates to realtors and certain demographics of areas of town, things like that. And then when they're here, we make it our goal within the first 90 days to get in touch with somebody, have a one-on-one meeting. I've got a staff of folks that is trying to sit down with every member within the first 90 days to really try to find out what their values are, what are their passions, and how do they hope to get plugged in the city. And we explicitly state in our orientation, which is the first day of membership, that our hope for all of our members is that they do not actually need Tulsa Remote in order to love Tulsa. We're totally aware of the fact that there's so much that Tulsa has to offer, and it's going to be far more likely for somebody to stick around within the city if we can get them plugged in within the organizations across the city, rather than relying on us to provide a social life or professional development and all of that. So we have events every week where they certainly have the opportunities to get connected and get plugged in. But we also are really intentional about trying to, just kind of figure out what makes somebody tick and then connect them to the right places in town.
Well, I mean, you must be doing something right. 90%, you said, have stayed for more than the minimum year.
That's right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that also, which I love about the intentions of panels like this and the work that you all are doing is, oftentimes folks don't give Tulsa a chance, but we do see that when people give us a chance, they are very likely to stay, whether that's with Tulsa Remote or whether it's with, tech companies that are recruiting folks to town, or Teach for America, where I actually started my career with a 2-year commitment to teach in Tulsa. It often takes a little bit to get somebody here, but when they're here and they see what Tulsa has to offer, they're often surprised, and that typically leads to retention. I think that's true for so many of our cities, and that's where we have really said, okay, if what it takes for somebody to give us a chance is that $10,000, we're willing to pay that $10,000 every time, because we know that the economic impact and the return on that investment is going to be so great, and it's very likely that somebody stays beyond that year.
Yeah, it's a really cool program. And I encourage the people who are attending, text questions to us that you might have for the panel, and we'll try to get those answered. Kathy, I'm interested in learning about your what you're doing to develop your own internal talent, and what kind of programs that you guys are looking at or have found successful.
Yeah, we've done a number of different things. So one of the things that we believe is that it's not just about upskilling or reskilling an individual, it's about that pathway to employment as well. And so one of the first places that we started was actually in an apprenticeship model. Leveraging best practices across the country, we actually brought a software development practice here, and now actually just received grant funding to be able to expand that into security and IT service desk as well. And I think those are important programs for a couple of reasons. First of all, these are really life-changing opportunities in tech. I think most people recognize that with, much higher salary ranges. The average tech salary is about 56% higher than the average salary in the region. And so with an average age of 33, very high diversity, over 75% diverse of those that are traditionally underrepresented in tech. It allows us to not only build capacity in the region, but also build the diversity of that tech talent workforce as well. So that's one example. There's others. We actually created a preferred provider network of reskilling providers who are actually working together, because one program might not be a fit doesn't mean that another one would not. And so being able to share candidates, refer candidates, help them be successful across programs is really important. And then the other thing is making sure that we expand kind of the funnel of candidates. So we actually run a summer AI data boot camp for collegiate level students. And that's a multidisciplinary program. So literally we've had everybody from fashion design to government affairs, et cetera, going through an AI data boot camp, which then allows you really to increase your funnel, right, of candidates coming through, because you're bringing them from multidisciplinary programs. So that's also been a really successful program for us.
That's interesting, because we have a publication called IT Strategy Report. And so we deal with a lot of IT people and looking at sort of how IT is becoming transformed within organizations, who's responsible for technology. And one of the things that we talk a lot about is having an IT workforce that is multidisciplinary, right? That understands the business issues and have good communication skills on top of whatever tech talent stack they might have. And I think we're going to see this increasingly happen, where we're taking people who have non-technical degrees, undergraduate degrees, and moving them into tech positions, especially in management.
We actually see it as one of those things that gives you kind of the best of both worlds, right?
Yeah.
If you're coming in with domain expertise because you've worked in manufacturing or supply chain or insurance, and then you bring that you add that technical capability, it actually gives you kind of the best of both worlds.
Well, and it's huge because, I don't want to get too far off of this, but I find it really interesting. One of the things that comes up when we talk to people who are managing technology in manufacturing is that they've found that the best thing is to have someone from IT on the shop floor who really understands what's going on there. But they have a hard time getting people that have, just graduated with their degree and in computer science and saying, go sit on the factory floor for the next 3 years. So taking people from the factory floor and teaching them IT is a great solution to that, right? And I think we're going to see a lot more of that, because you got to know how the sausage is made. And that's super important. Mark, one of the things I wanted to bring up with you was ecosystems, right? And the ecosystems that Pittsburgh is building and the region is building. If you could touch on that. Life sciences, I know, is big, and some others that you might bring up, because I think that each city is building a slightly different and unique ecosystem. And what we want to do is make those ecosystems robust enough so I know that I've got a second job, right?
Yeah.
And I see that you're focused a lot on that.
Yeah, we are. And I think the broader economic development community has shifted its model, I would say, over the last 15 years, from just traditional business, tax incentive, kind of real estate focused work, to really creating the conditions for creativity to flourish. Pittsburgh is a place where you have such a rich R&D infrastructure. And we historically, and this was documented from a Brookings report a few years ago, haven't maximized that talent. And so collectively, the foundations, the public sector, our role as part of the Allegheny Conference, which is our regional business civic organization, are collectively looking at areas where we really want startups, where we want capital, we want to see talent, all really know Pittsburgh for. And that includes all things tied to autonomy, robotics, AI. Life sciences obviously is a huge area that a lot of markets really have potential to scale, but we have such a huge healthcare infrastructure that we should be at the leading edge of that. When you look at just the creative sector, and whether it's esports or just some of the new things that are being developed around Web 3.0, like all of that, Pittsburgh should really be a place globally that people know. And then it's something that you'll continue to see announcements where we're making those investments to advance it.
Yeah, that's, again, I think that's so important. And one of the things that Pittsburgh and all of you have in your cities are universities that are doing amazing research and starting to, I think, up their game on tech transfer, and how they can take that research and the R&D that's come out of places like Carnegie Mellon, right, and apply it either to existing businesses or spin-off startups. Does anybody have any comments on working with the universities in your city and region?
Was that for me?
Or anyone, yeah, who's got a...
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. So if you think about Cleveland, there is significant institutional research going on, whether it's through Case Western Reserve, university hospitals, Cleveland Clinic, and the likes. And over the last 3 to 5 years, JumpStart and other entities have placed a specific emphasis on how to accelerate commercialization for those innovations. A great example for that for us is we recently launched a new fund called the Healthcare Collaboration Fund, which is in partnership with university hospitals and really looking to accelerate at a pre-seed and seed stage the commercialization of innovative technologies, whether it's from within the institutions, what we call inside out, or it's innovations from anywhere. It could be some innovation from a research institute in Columbus, for example, or a university in Columbus that is solving a problem.
All right, I had a little technical glitch there. Go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I'll speak to that. I think the universities are kind of a key partner. If not, they should be. And so we work with them in a number of ways, but two that really stick out is any investment that we want to see happen in the region, especially with the workforce shortage that we have across the country. The future pipeline is crucial to them, and the universities are the place where that can best happen, and the community colleges and just the overarching education infrastructure. Second, they're marketing our places, right? And so we have an active collaboration that we're building. Pittsburgh is a college town, but people don't think about it as one. But we have a lot of schools, 30 plus, that come to mind, and they're collectively amplifying the message to students across the world. And so we want to make sure that they understand the maximum value that we bring and how to really sell it.
Cool.
Yeah, and I would just
go ahead, Kathy. Yeah, sorry.
I was just going to add, we think of it not only as Milwaukee. One of the unique things about Milwaukee is we have, to Mark's point, we actually have the 6th highest concentration of students per capita. So we have a lot of early talent, but we also then expand that into the 90-mile radius and start to look at Madison and those innovations coming from there as well. And I think that's a lesson for all of us, right, is in these Midwestern cities, not to just think of the core Midwestern city, but more think of it as a region that where there's collaboration between cities as well.
I'm really glad you brought that up. We at Flyover Future believe that this, celebrating the region and everything that's going on in the greater region, and then, like you said, these sort of sub-regions where you're picking up areas within, 50, 100 miles, is super important. Capital flows, I think, more easily within the region. Certainly talent does. It's way easier to recruit somebody from Indianapolis to come to Pittsburgh than from Austin, Texas. And we're exporting some of our best talent every year. I think Mark touched on that a little bit, right? I mean, Carnegie Mellon students aren't all staying in Pittsburgh. And I think paying attention to that's also super important. Anybody doing anything with retention at the university level to make sure that those students are seeing that there are world-class opportunities in Flyover Country and there's world-class talent?
So I can speak to some of the things that Ohio is doing through various internship programs that we are running, whether it's internship programs that JumpStart or Rev1 like organizations are running, or some programs are run by the state government, by the Ohio Third Frontier. They are all kind of at least exposing the university students to the startup world. And we see that as a funnel to early employees for those companies that we are investing in.
Yep.
Yeah,
Justin, you have any thoughts on that?
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say, when we, we certainly work with the university closely, but obviously our mission is recruiting folks from outside of the city, outside of the state to come in. But I do think there's kind of an association between the marketing that we're doing and then local folks seeing what Tulsa does have to offer through our marketing efforts, right? So I was at actually spoke to a marketing class at a university a couple weeks ago and showed them some of our, some of the things we use externally. And they were all like, wow, you guys make Tulsa look incredible. And so I do think there's some perception that's also important, which is that we're actually recruiting really smart people from all across the country, from the coast, who are choosing to leave the coast to come to Tulsa. And, I think that kind of over time, our hope is that changes the association and the mindset that somebody has with Tulsa, as it's not that you have to flee country or you have to flee Tulsa in order to really see success, or that you're not equating leaving with career success or career drive. To see folks making the choice to come here, I do think there's power in that. And I think that it's not necessarily a direct correlation, but our hope is that in those branding efforts and marketing efforts, there is an intentional change and shift in the way that college students are thinking.
No, I think that's super important. I see what you're saying there. Kathy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, first of all, I completely agree with Justin. When we put a tech talent attraction site together to help people understand how to connect and where they could engage in the community and where they could continue to grow their careers, et cetera. I mean, it targets mid-career talent, but it also has the secondary benefit of helping our collegiate students be able to really see themselves here as well and understand the extent of the opportunities. And then we augmented that. We happen to be fortunate to have 120 employers working together. And so having them together to start to showcase the types of technologies that are here. Some of the research that we did said, people really do care that they're solving problems that matter, and that they're using current technologies. They're committed. They want to know they're going to a place committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So part of that is also telling those stories of, that we're working on problems that matter with current technologies and doing it with individuals of all different backgrounds. And I think telling those stories are very important to retaining talent.
I mean, that's part of the reason why we exist, right? To tell those stories at Flyover. And we think it's super important. And I think, what we know is that talented people, one of the most important things to them is working with other talented people. And we have them in Flyover Country. We have them in all of your cities, world-class things being done by crazy talented people. But again, there's that perception. And I think you're right, Justin and Kathy, when you talk about telling the general story to attract talent, that story also bleeds into the community where they start saying, oh, there is world-class stuff happening here. There are really amazing people that I can work with on things that matter. The other thing is, and we touched on this a little bit with Justin, the other thing that matters a lot to the generation that we're all trying to hire is they also want to get engaged in their city quickly and do things that matter within their community. I mean, this, is one of the strong points of Flyover Country, right? I mean, if you want to get involved in pretty much any organization, if you want to get in touch with the mayor, you can call her, you can get in touch with her. One of you guys can set up an introduction, right, to pretty much anybody in your cities. And I don't know if anybody has any comments on that, or this, how do we get people engaged in the city and connect them in a non-work thing? And I know Justin Tulsa's got a lot going on there. Mark or Kathy Hardy, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I wanted to weigh in. I feel like Tulsa's done probably the best job in marketing their overarching program. It's definitely a model that even people that don't follow our work cites, right? We have a local program that my team leads, what's called the Pittsburgh Passport, that really exposes college students and interns at the local companies to Pittsburgh, right? And so everything from sports to culture to events to different subsets, whether you're a diverse talent or part of the LGBTQ plus community, like gives them a front door to get engaged. And I think as a person who's moved to new markets, and for people who are really at that age where it's really difficult to kind of find your way, I think that's important for all of our cities to really maximize that.
So how does that work, the passport?
Yeah, so companies basically let us know the amount of interns they have for the summer.
Okay.
And we're in the process of gearing up for this summer. And then we start to basically develop programming and access points for them. And so it is a centralized effort to really create this immersive experience in a way that companies couldn't develop on their own.
Very cool. Anybody else have any thoughts on that? Kathy?
I'd just say I will admit we're probably just getting started, right? So we're a 2-year-old organization. And so some of the first things we did is just collected that, right? I mean, one of the things that's hard is it's very difficult to find. And so by putting that together and being able to find people that you can either identify with based on, demographics, or based on job types, or based on particular types of technologies in which you're interested, we actually put that together so that people can actually find one another. And so that has been,
right.
I think, nice. Just even, as a first step, as cities think about this, that's one first step. And then having that in a centralized location that people can utilize it, whether it's while you're recruiting for external, or, to keep and retain talent. That's important to be able to create those connections in the community.
Great. I want to throw this out to the community and make sure that anyone that has any questions has an opportunity to ask them. Anybody out there want to ask anything to our panelists? So let's talk about what you guys are looking at in the future. We've got programs happening now. I know, Kathy, you guys have only been around, like you said, 2 years, but you've already got 100 plus companies signed up, which is awesome. So what's next for all you guys? Anything coming up? It's exciting.
I'm happy to go on JumpStart side. We literally last week announced a new positioning for our investing activity under the kind of brand of JumpStart Ventures. So we are excited to deploy close to $70 million in the next 3 to 4 years in innovative technology startups throughout Ohio, but also with a specific focus on Cleveland. There is a flywheel effect that comes at some point if you invest in enough startups and they become successful, or a handful of them become successful, then you see the flywheel effect of new startups being formed. And that really is the angle that we are playing.
Yeah, and for us, I mean, the next phase of Tulsa Remote, I think we're going to continue to bring folks in from across the country. And our goal for this calendar year is 1,100 members. I think the next phase of kind of our organizational life is now figuring out if we continue at this clip of bringing this many people in every year and retaining 90%. We know that 4 out of 10 remote workers, Tulsa Remote members, have entrepreneurial desires. So how do we kind of support them in the right ways to bring their idea to life, or find them funding, or get them the right supports to find out, is there anything meaty within their idea? It's really exciting to think about how these thousands of people over the course of the next 5 to 10 years could bring this entrepreneurial spirit to the city, and how we could see even the ripple effects of talented folks coming to town. So I think getting people here is one thing. Getting the most out of them and helping them bring their dreams to life is kind of phase 2. And so we will now really start to see an alumni, folks that are done with their 1 year, an alumni network that becomes even bigger than the number of members we're bringing in every year, which for us is, really the exciting part of this mission. And that's where we're really shifting focus in the next 3 to 6 months.
Yeah. Maybe I'll build on Justin's comment. So, as we built the coalition and the activities of it, we took a very entrepreneurial mindset of, we're going to try some things. Some are going to fail. Some are going to be really super successful. And then we'll get to the point of scale. And we're really at that point of taking some of the programs that have been built and starting to scale. And so to Justin's comment about the entrepreneurial mindset, one of the things we started 2 years ago was an early stage incubator. And basically, I have an idea in my mind of a problem I want to solve, and how do I get it through, product market fit, and starting to be able to build an MVP, and starting to be able to pitch it for funding, all of those kinds of things. We've had 200 founders go through in the last 2 years, and we've had 80 new startups formed as a result of that. And that has benefits both to, building new entrepreneurs and new startups. It also, though, has a benefit to our corporations in bringing that entrepreneurial mindset into our corporations. So if we think that 80 out of 200 are starting new firms, you still have 120 that went back to their original firms. And that innovative thinking and bringing that into their organizations is really beneficial. And then, extending that through things like we do reverse pitch, which is kind of the idea of I have a problem as a corporate to solve, and there isn't a solution in the marketplace. Pitching that out to the a national startup audience and saying, help us to solve that. That's another way that you start to build innovation and growth in your ecosystem. So taking those things that we've started and really starting to scale those are really the path that we're on from as an entrepreneurial organization ourselves.
I have a question or an answer to Chase's comment here in regards to what would you suggest an entrepreneur who has a background in parking lot management and food and bev to break into the tech space? What skills would you suggest focusing on?
That's a big question. I will say I am a fan of a lot of the tech training providers, like Roscola's, Flatiron, General Assembly. I think they can provide some guidance based on the types of courses you'd want to take, and then the career paths they can put you on. Because I think the tech field is so broad that you also have just big enterprise firms that are investing a lot in tech. So I think there's a lot of opportunity, and there's clearly a space for you, but it would be help to iterate that some before you make a choice.
Yeah, I was going to say on that one, I would think start with the problem you want to solve. Especially relying on those skill sets that you have in parking lot management, food and beverage. What problem is important that is unsolved in the marketplace? And then build an MVP. You don't have to have deep technical skills. You can use things like no-code solutions that are really logic-based. Bubble is one that's a good example of that. And really start to lay out the logic and get some feedback, right? Before you do significant investment. That would be my suggestion on that.
Yeah, I guess maybe the only other thing I would add is if you don't have
Any other
resources in whatever region
thoughts?
you are in, there are lots of free resources for you to leverage to get to understand how to go through a customer discovery process, to Kathy's comment, and really kind of get that voice of the customer feedback.
I also like the idea of throwing out problems that you're trying to solve to the startup community beyond your city or your region, right? Because that's another way of saying to the world happening here, and pay attention.
Yeah, we
Okay,
actually
any other
saw, in our reverse pitch, we actually saw people from all over the country that participated, with most of them actually coming from other areas in the country. So that was pretty interesting.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Eric, you're right.
Yeah, and Tom, I can take another question that we have in the chat here. Tim is asking, have you identified verticals on which to focus?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in Tulsa, it's not necessarily Tulsa Remote, but because we are underneath a larger umbrella of a big foundation, there's a program called Tulsa Innovation Labs, which I would recommend folks checking out. It's tulsainnovationlabs.com. And they have identified, through really robust research, kind of the 5 industries that we believe are going to exist here in Tulsa, or that we're going to have the most need for in the future. And so, actively creating opportunities in space, working with the mayor's office and council folks and, the chamber to really create opportunities that exist within those industries. That is something that I would certainly recommend. I'm sure other cities that are represented here are doing that too, but you can learn more about which industries those are on their website.
Yeah. I like to endorse that their leader is a former colleague of mine from New York.
Right on. Yeah. Cool.
So we were like friends and traveled and did a lot of work together. But you do see just a lot of people are invested in making sure all of our cities are competitive to the traditional winners in the space. And so pretty much from, I'll say, Rhode Island to Sacramento, you have a lot of just strategy under it.
Right. All right. We're getting close to closing time here. I'm looking at other questions. I'm not really sure what Nate means. It's important to look for the right partners. That may have to do with the verticals. Anyway, so let's think about wrapping up here. I hope that not only our listening audience, but all of you have learned something from each other. I think it's always interesting to look at what other cities are doing and what's working and what's not, because we're all kind of competitive, but we're also all, working together in a lot of ways. And this talent capital attraction issue is the fundamental issue, I think, to drive innovation. Any closing thoughts, Hardik? When we talk about talent and capital, it's kind of a chicken egg situation. Are you guys, when you're deploying your capital, are you mostly acting as a lead investor?
Yes and no. We are more than happy to lead, but we don't have to lead. If there are other investors who are participating, we are more than happy to invest under those terms. I guess where we do play a significant role is in putting the syndicate together. Like, let's bring other co-investors. If a company is raising $5 million, then we are going to use all of our collective networks that we have built over the last 15 plus years to bring other investors to the table to help close out the round. And then we have a very active recruiting team at JumpStart, whose task is to work with our portfolio companies once we have invested in them. So we are working very closely with them to identify the first 5, 10, 15 employees that they are hiring after we invest.
I think entrepreneurs aren't necessarily particularly great at hiring people, and we certainly don't do HR, right? I mean, that's just those are details that we don't mess with. So any assistance I think that any of your organizations can give to entrepreneurs in setting up that team, that really core team, I think is super valuable. Because it's, you know, it's one of the most important things you'll do as an entrepreneur. You know, your success will be in large part determined by who you surround yourself with, and then whether or not you listen to them. So I think that's also super important. Justin, you got any final words?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that being true for entrepreneurs. I think it's true for everybody. So, you know, I think that's a good lesson for all of us to take away. Yeah, I mean, I think especially for cities like the ones represented here, right now is an incredibly powerful moment in the work environment, as I think folks really no longer, there's less and less folks that have to move somewhere simply because their job requires it. And I think we're entering a new phase where folks can move where they want to live and do their job from there, you know, and I think that that's really great. It brings a lot of power to the employer. And I think cities like those represented here, including Tulsa, are going to benefit greatly from that, given that we have lower cost of living and really great lifestyle options for about half the price. So I do think it's going to be a really exciting time as employees have more power in that decision. And, you know, I would encourage cities to make really clear who they are and who they're looking for, and find new and innovative ways to bring really talented folks to town. Appreciate everybody being here, and thanks for having us and allowing us to represent ourselves.
Oh yeah, well, thanks for coming. Kathy?
Yeah, I would echo Justin's comment. I think bringing these kind of conversations together, I took notes on a couple of things that everyone was doing. And I think, you know, to your question about, you know, growing capital, et cetera, we see that as kind of a lagging indicator. You've got to get the talent and the ideas and the entrepreneurship and the research all right. And then the venture capital will flow, right? And so when we look at this, that's the mindset we're under, is build the enabling blocks and the rest of that will flow through, because money flows in a much easier way than other things. So
Right, for sure. And we tend to agree with you that capital follows talent, right? So I think that's important. Build those fundamentals early on, and the rest will happen. Mark, you guys got a lot going on. Any final thoughts?
We do. Something I really want to see happen, and this is something I think the Build Back Better competition that a lot of our cities are active in will help improve, is just more capital for emerging markets. When you look at the numbers from last year on VC, like the traditional hubs just blew through records, right? And so for all the work that we're doing as a country to try to create a more equitable, that we still can use more investment. I would love for the VCs and financial institutions to really look at talent and opportunities in emerging markets. And I think over time, we'll start to see more equitable opportunity. That's something we're vying for and something we're advocating for.
Well, one of the things we found, and, you know, I've been in technology for a long time, longer than I will admit to. And the coastal VCs would literally not invest in a company that was more than, you know, a 10 or 15 minute drive, right, from Sand Hill Road. And what we're seeing is, and I know of a few of the large institutional investors who are making some of their first investments in Flyover Country with founders they've never met personally. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And a lot, you know, and it's a much more efficient use of your capital, right? I mean, it'd be $20 million in LA, or it'd be $20 million in, you know, name the city, Cleveland. And your burn rate's going to be a lot lower in Cleveland, right? I mean, or Pittsburgh or wherever. And that's going to last you much longer than it will in LA. That alone is important. And then having the talent as well. It's been great having all of you here. It flew by for me, and I hope, you know, you guys have made some relationships with each other, and I hope that those of you who are listening will reach out to either us at Flyover or the panelists if you've got questions or if you want to move to one of their cities. Thanks all, and have a great rest of your day.